Tim, what should be the motivation of Christian obedience? Kind of what's the broad motivation of why we should obey the Bible and obey the Lord?
Beauty and duty. If we were completely sanctified, we would only do what God has said in His Word, strictly out of desire to please Him. We would never do it out of fear, never do it out of coercion. It would only be out of joy. And by the way, John Piper would certainly agree. I mean, that's how it ought to be. The fact is that our hearts aren't right, and so sometimes we actually just have to do the right thing because we know we should. So, for example, if you have an anger problem, ultimately, if you're a Christian, you have an anger problem, ultimately you have to say, why do you get so angry? And maybe you get angry because of inferiority feelings. Well, how are you going to deal with those inferiority feelings? You're going to have to use the gospel in your heart. You're going to have to remind yourself of who you are in Christ. You know, Paul Tripp will tell you that. David Pallison will tell you that. So in the end, the only way to overcome anger is to use the gospel in your heart until that insecurity is gone and those things are gone. However, if you have an anger problem and you want to pick up a rock and hit somebody in the head, and actually your heart isn't right, I still think you should not do it. Just because you might go to jail, just because your family is going to be so unhappy with you, just because God says no. I mean, in other words, in the long run, you should always do the right thing out of love for God and out of joy for God. But in the short run, very often, you should use any means possible to do the right thing, which means tell yourself, I'll probably go to jail if I do that. God will be mad at me, which He will be, by the way, if you do that. Even inside being a Christian, and therefore you're beautiful in Him and there's no condemnation, He's still angry at His children, I think, who He loves when they do something wrong like that. So I would say there's both, in the long run, beauty is your motivation, but in the short run, do it because it's your duty to do the right thing.